Welcome to Film Recapped. Hold on to your popcorn and smash the like button. Today I will show you a zombie horror film from 2020, Alive. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. Jun-woo wakes up alone in his family's upper floor flat and soon finds a note from his mother. The note informs him that the rest of the family has departed and asks him to go grocery shopping. Jun-woo fires up a computer game and begins streaming it to his online audience. When one of his playmates brings up the news, his game is disrupted. Jun-woo turns on the television and notices that a big number of violent acts and attacks have just been reported. While watching the news, he hears a disturbance outside and sees people running, shouting, and some individuals biting and scratching each other viciously. Jun-woo checks the corridor after hearing noises there, and a person forcefully comes into Jun-woo's apartment, claiming to be a neighbor. Jun-woo insists that he should go, but he refuses. Jun-woo takes a knife for self-defense and turns around to discover that his next-door neighbor's eyes have begun to bleed, suggesting that he is sick and will shift shortly. The neighbor snarls and attacks Jun-woo in a matter of seconds. Jun-woo fights hard but only manages to force his neighbor out the door, where an infected person feasts on him. Jun-woo uses his refrigerator to seal the door before watching the news on television. He receives text from his mother, informing him that they too are hiding but he can't contact them due to the lack of coverage. He rations the food he has left and prepares to fend for himself. He learns the next day from the news that the infected engage in cannibalism and should be avoided. Blood contact from bites or knife wounds has been reported to transmit the virus. Jun-woo then chooses to post a photo of himself on social media, along with his location, in the hopes that someone will notice it. He straps his phone to a small drone and attempts to fly it up in the air in the hopes of receiving reception. This plan fails since his drone's battery is depleted. Jun-woo notices a police officer rushing through the streets fending off the infected, but she is rapidly overwhelmed. Jun-woo attempts to help the police officer, but he is unable to assist her. He hears a noise from behind the barricaded door and notices that an infected has gained access to his flat. The infected tries to push the refrigerator barricade and Jun is forced to climb over the balcony. The pursuing infected tries to catch up with him but falls over the balcony. After a few days, Jun-woo begins to drink hard liquor. He learns through the news that the infected have retained some intelligence and are capable of performing simple things like unlocking doors. Some people have even been found to recall abilities from their previous jobs. 2 weeks pass, and Jun-woo is found dancing about drunkenly. He sees his family return from their trip and hugs his mother in a hallucination. He awakens from his trance and cries uncontrollably. Later, he tries to get reception by extending his smartphone out the balcony on the end of a selfie stick. He finally receives a voice message from his family after reaching out. When he listens to the message, he discovers that his mother, father, and sister are all hiding in his father's office together. Jun-woo is distressed when he hears his mother's message deteriorate into screams and crying. He listens as his family is devoured alive and killed by the infected. Jun-woo, desperate for something to do about his situation, grabs a golf club and storms the infected-infested hallway. He curses and screams at them as he tries to smash and clobber as many of them as he can. The commotion attracts additional infected, and Jun is swiftly overrun. He snaps out of his fury and realizes that he must return to safety. He creeps by a few infected persons in the hallway before hiding and sneaking back inside his flat. On day 20, he witnesses explosions throughout the metropolis region, as well as the loss of power and water. Without food, water, or family, Jun-woo makes the decision to take his life. He hangs himself in the living room with a noose made of wires. He sees a laser light glaring at him from an apartment in the building adjacent to his own as he chokes. He struggles to free himself from the noose and eventually falls to the ground. He dashes to the window and notices a woman peering through binoculars at him. He sends a wave to the woman, who responds with a wave of her own. Yu-bin stares through her binoculars at a man who just attempted to kill himself. When she hears a commotion outside her hallway, she prepares to set off an improvised trap she set up in case the infected burst through her door. The noise finally subsides, and she falls asleep. Jun-woo looks for Yu-bin the next morning when she wakes up. They exchange names by revealing them on their phones, but their conversation is cut short when an infected enters Yu-bin's residence. It is ensnared in her trap, and she uses an axe to quickly slay the infected. Yu-bin notices that Jun-woo is hungry the next day and attempts to toss a rope across to Jun-woo's flat. It lands in the center of a swarm of infected on the street. When Junwoo notices this, he grabs his drone and flies rope to Yoo-bin's place. Yoo-bin sends Junwoo some food and he expresses his gratitude. As he eats, he notices the rope Yoo-bin had thrown earlier and an infected firefighter climbing up with it. As the fireman pulls the rope, the table to which it is attached flies across the room, colliding with Yoo-bin and knocking her out. Junwoo hurries in order to launch his drone and try to knock the fireman off the rope. He tries to divert the infected man's attention away from the drone, but it is smashed to bits. She appears just as the fireman is about to reach Yoo-bin's balcony and cuts the fireman's hand off with an axe. Junwoo goes out to his neighbor later that night in search of food and supplies. He makes it to the next-door apartment and discovers climbing and camping equipment. As his next-door neighbor is a hiker, his neighbor tackles him as he picks up the food, and a scuffle begins. Junwoo retaliates and manages to flee the apartment. He obtained additional food, water, and supplies, including a pair of walkie-talkies. He sends one to Yoo-bin through the rope link, and the two begin chatting through them. Yoo-bin notices that the two like the same foods as they share a dinner together. Junwoo expresses gratitude to Yoo-bin for saving his life. Yoo-bin refuses to take credit, claiming that it was his will to survive that saved his life, not hers. Yoo-bin attempted suicide as well, as shown by a broken noose hanging from the ceiling. After a few days, the horde of infected on the street starts to run and enter their homes. The infected swarm the passageways, looking for any survivors they can find. Yoo-bin notices that Junwoo's building's 8th story is the quietest and suggests that they go there. Yoo-bin flees to the streets, where she discovers a gun. She fights off the infected and is about to be overrun just before Junwoo shows up and leads her to the 8th floor. They come across a group of infected on the 8th floor and are cornered at the end of a corridor. Fortunately, a door opens and a man appears to save them from the infected. They go into the man's apartment and eat together. He tells them that he heard on the radio about rescue teams and that they'll be rescued as soon as they eat. Yoo-bin comes across a photograph of a couple with their child. She also notices milk bottles, but no signs of a child. She inquires about the man's child, but he states that he does not have one. Yoo-bin realizes they've been drugged and that the man isn't who he claims to be when Junwoo passes out. The man rises and leads Yoo-bin to a room where his infected wife is waiting. The man expresses gratitude for their assistance, as his wife had been hungry for days. He traps Yoo-bin together with his wife and locks the door. Junwoo gets up, points his gun at the man, and threatens to shoot if he does not let Yoo-bin go. Junwoo dives for the rope after the man lets go of it, and drops his gun in the process. While Yoo-bin screams, the man bargains with Junwoo, stating he'll let him go as long as Yoo-bin stays. Junwoo expects the worst, as the screaming within the room stops. The man unlocks the door and enters it to find Yoo-bin forcing a blanket over the diseased wife's face. The sick wife is then set loose on the man. Yoo-bin shoots them both as the woman bites the man's neck, but the gunfire draw the horde of infected with no hope in sight. Before the horde arrives, Yoo-bin says they should kill themselves. Junwoo agrees and forces himself to aim the gun at Yoo-bin. However, just as he is about to pull the trigger, helicopters pass by. They dash to the top of the building, trailed by the infected. As the pair is cornered on the roof, a helicopter appears and soldiers begin shooting at the horde. They manage to board the helicopter quickly and take off. Junwoo gets reception as they fly out and learns that a large portion of the metropolitan area has been affected, with an estimated 50,000 people. He also notices that many of the survivors have shared their photos and locations on social media, similar to how Junwoo had posted his image too. It was with this crucial information that they were able to be found by the rescuers. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell if you enjoyed this video.